Hello, welcome to Monday, September 21st daily lesson slides. Let's get started. So today we're going to, of course, start off with a warm-up. We're going to work on making some predictions, and then we're going to read the moral logic of survivor's guilt. So for our objective is to make predictions about the plot, the moral logic of survivor's guilt by examining the titles, headlines, and art within the text. And then we'll analyze some of the characteristics and structural elements of argumentative texts, including persuasive appeals, by highlighting the elements in the moral logic of survivor guilt. So for your warm-up, again, this will be a Google form. Just to go over, nonfiction writers often use specific text features such as titles, subtitles to engage the reader's interest and organize ideas. You can preview these features to make predictions, anticipate the content and the structure of the text. Then you can confirm or correct your predictions as you read the full text. So what I want you to do is take a few minutes right now and pause the video, go into your Google Classroom, which you would go here, click on classwork. It would bring you to your stream. You would see you should have probably already seen the morning announcement today. And then we go to classwork, and there would be your warm-up where you would click for your warm-up. But before you go to your warm-up, in order to do that, you do need to open up the text for the day. So if you click on the 21st, the moral logic of survivor's guilt, and click on this link, it will take you to the story, and it would look something like this. So what we want to look at is look at the picture, look at the title. You can see that there are some subheadings here that you will want to look through the article about. This is an editorial, so it is an opinion piece. It's going to have some kind of claim, some kind of opinion. So pause the video and go into the warm-up and make some predictions based on the illustration, the title, and the two subtitles in the article. Okay, as we're reading, we're going to always annotate as we have been doing. So since this has been pushed out to you, as you can see, I already started doing some highlighting. Whenever you are, let's go back to what we're supposed to do, or three things that we always do. We're going to circle yellow words that we don't know, or if we're familiar with all the words, then we're going to circle powerful words that have an effect on the reader. We're going to underline pink any important ideas, and we're going to put question marks next to ideas that challenge our comprehension or raise questions, and then we're going to put those questions in an annotation box. So if we had a question, let's say about the first paragraph, we would highlight that and then type our information in the box. Okay. Oops, I'm sorry. Here we go. So we're going to, one of the first things we're going to do, I'm going to just get you started with this article. Sorry, it's an article, not a story. We're going to look at the first two paragraphs. And so if you will go to Savant and quietly read those to yourselves, remember you can click play and listen to the passage, and be sure you're reading as you are listening. So take a moment and read the first two paragraphs. Okay, so you should have read the first two paragraphs, and within those first two paragraphs, we should have been able to find the author's claim. So the claim of the author's position on the topic of the essay is the thesis statement of the argumentative text, something that the author is trying to prove to its readers, their position. So take a moment now that you have read it for comprehension and see if you can go back and find the claim. Pause your video and find the claim. Okay, So the claim the author is making is that although survivor's guilt may seem to be irrational, it does possess a certain moral logic, and it serves to create empathy and help impose moral order on the chaos or violence of war. Okay. So where is our textual evidence to support that? Where can we find that that's her claim? That's pretty much summing up what her claim is. Where can we find some textual evidence in paragraph 1 and paragraph 2? Take a moment and find some textual evidence, and then highlight that evidence pink. Okay, if you look in paragraph 1, where the author states, and while friends and families of returning soldiers may be experiencing gratefulness or relief this holiday, many of those they've welcomed home are likely struggling with other emotions. And in paragraph 2, she says, high on the list of these emotions is guilt. So we know this is really what she is focusing on, that survivor's guilt of people feeling guilty when they have no rational reason to feel guilty, but they can't help themselves. She's focusing her article on about war and soldiers at war, but we can think of also other incidences that we could connect to this. We can think about the seventh man and the survivor's guilt he encountered by losing his friend Kay. We can also think about when we have storms and some people are devastated and other people aren't. Sometimes some people suffer from that guilt of not having it as bad as other people. You can even think back to situations where with teens that have gone through school shootings that have talked in the media about the guilt they feel for surviving that a horrific event like that, and something that they just can't let go, that survivor's guilt. Okay, so I'd like for you to go ahead and continue reading all the way through paragraph 6. We're going to do some notice and note questions. So read through paragraph 6, and then we'll come back to the video. Okay, so just to go through what we've kind of encountered, we've read in the first 2 paragraphs. Those kind of been our introduction, which is something that we really haven't seen because this is a more sophisticated piece of writing. This is actually a pretty challenging piece of writing. But here is an example of an introduction that took 2 paragraphs. We see the author kind of hook us there in the beginning and bridge their way in to their thesis statement into paragraph 2. She uses lots of good, strong vocabulary words, so I'm expecting to see a lot of words circled. If you noticed, when she talked about the relief this holiday, she is published this the day before the 4th of July. So that's also pretty significant to think about, since she is talking about soldiers and war as a time of celebration of heroes and the sacrifices people have made and the lives that they have sacrifice for others. If we go down to paragraph 3, we see that the author is using what is called an anecdote. An anecdote is a short story of some sort that or could be a personal story that makes some kind of connection. And with this, we have the Captain Bonberger and his story of the soldier that was shot in the face and killed. And hang on, let me get these questions up. Okay, so Bonberger, his guilt had to do with Specialist Jeremiah Pulaski dying. This specialist had saved the captain's life a couple times, and now he felt guilty that he had died, even though he wasn't near him and could not help him. He had a sense of that survivor's guilt, that he couldn't be there for him when the specialist had been there for him at one time in his life. So the author then goes on to talk about the different types of guilt. She talks about the subjective guilt, the objective, the blameworthiness, and she does a lot of quoting from philosophers and using their philosophy to explain things. So think about what kind of appeal the antidotes would be using. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And also by what is she doing when she's pulling in these philosophers, these German philosophers, and like Aristotle's as well. What is the purpose of talking about their theories and their thoughts? Okay, so let's go to the questions. For notice and note, we're looking just at paragraph 6 now. So in paragraph 6, why does the writer focus on defining what it is to be good? And what purpose do these definitions and examples serve? So pause the video and go back to paragraph 6, reread it, and think about what you think about those questions, please. All right. So some textual evidence about what does the writer focus on defining about good. She uses who I am and not just what do I do matters morally. Character is expected in action, but it is also expressed. Virtue is concerned with emotions and actions. To have a good character, it is to hit the means with respect to both and what one cares deeply about and the desire or obligation to help. So by defining on what something's good, she's really pointing out that that is part of our survivor's guilt. That we have that good morale inside us that we just cannot think about allowing something horrible to happen to someone else. Um, so we put that guilt upon us because we have that good nature inside of us. So a large part of the feeling guilt is based on having good character. The author wants to establish that good people feel guilty because they weren't able to make their actions match their desire to help. So they want to so badly, just like the captain did. He wanted to almost repay that specialist, even though I'm sure he did in so many ways, for saving his life. And he wished and desired so much that he could have been there in his time of need, and he couldn't. These definitions and examples serve to point out a conflict. A person may feel guilty, not virtuous, precisely because he or she is a good person. They don't. It's not like they're thinking, "I'm so perfect. I'm so virtuous." In that essence, they just feel guilty because they're a good person. All right, some concrete details. Remember, concrete details are those hard facts or evidence that we use to support our claim. So in paragraph 8, Sherman compares the survivor's guilt to zero-sum game. So go back and reread paragraph 8 and define what zero-sum game means. So if you go back to the paragraph, she says in paragraph 8, survivor's guilt piles on the unconscious, that the luck is part of a zero-sum game. To have good luck is to deprive another of it. So there's your definition pretty much right there. Zero-sum means that one person's gain results in another person's loss. You've probably heard that before. How does Sherman's use of this term support her argument? Oops, sorry. Well, think about it. What do you think? How do you think that supports in survivor's guilt? If we think about the seventh man, he felt so guilty at the loss of Kay, and so his guilt resulted in the loss of his childhood, of his innocence. When he gained his letting go of his I'm sorry, when he no, I don't want to say that. Just when someone else loses something, someone else gains something, someone else loses. use the term to help explain why survivors. The use of the term helps. The use of the term helps explain why survivors feel guilty. Because we feel like we gained our life, or we gained not being destroyed or killed in war, then we feel that guilty. That the guilty, being guilty. Okay, so I want you to do is to go ahead and finish reading the article. And as you finish reading, it's not very long. The whole article is 12 minutes to listen to. I want you to notice some appeals. I made you look at the anecdotes and think about what appeals are being used, but see if there's any other appeals, if you can find all three appeals being used in the article. Okay, I'd like for you to look at paragraph 14 now, and we're going to look at the sentences in which the author states her own observation and highlight those in pink. So the question is, how does the quotation from Pryor add to the support of the author's observation? So in paragraph 14, we have the quote here. In his case, moral repair came through the emphatic, painful connection with Mayek's mother. So remember, the prior story was a story where he was also not like the other captain, not directly. He wasn't there in the situation, but it was his actions and his indirect actions that ended up causing the direct death of the soldier. And although he knows he's not should feel guilty of it, it's not a day that goes by that he doesn't find guilt from it. And what we ended up seeing is his mother, the officer that died, his mother is able to deal with her pain and her guilt through a connection with Pryor by kind of treating him like a son. All right. Pryor had become a son, had come the son who was no longer. So the quotation from Pryor establishes this relationship and reinforces the author's observation that the moral repair was made through a painful connection between him and the mother. So that's important. The moral repair was made through a painful connection between him and the mother. And the quote from Pryor also adds to the weight of Sherman's argument, and it is an example of pathos because she's appealing to your emotions by sharing the story. She's got these two anecdotes that are very similar. The first one is a story of guilt but not involved in the death, and the other one is a story of guilt that the officer was inadvertently impacted by the death. So where is the conclusion? Where did you find the conclusion in her article? If you look at paragraph 15, that is actually where her conclusion begins. Do you think her Sherman's conclusion is convincing? And then I ask that you explain by citing specific details to support your position. So if we look in her, read this last two paragraphs. In all of this, we might say guilt, subjective guilt, has a redemptive side. It is a way that soldiers impose moral order on the chaos and the awful randomness of war's violence. It is a way they humanize war for themselves, for the buddies, and for us as civilians too. But that's all that is involved. It sounds too moralistic. It makes guilt appropriate for or fitting because it's good for society. It is a way we all can deal with war. Maybe instead we want to say it's fitting because it is evolutionary adaptive in a way that fear. But again, she's putting back to her point, but then again, this doesn't do justice to the phenomenon. The guilt that the soldier feel isn't just morally expedient or species adaptive. It is fitting because it gets right to the center morale features of the soldier's world. that good soldiers depend on each other, come to love each other, and have duties to care and bring each other safely home. All right. So Sherman's what I want you to do when you do your little annotations there, all you need to do is highlight paragraph 15, just the number 15, and I'd like for you to answer these questions in your annotation. What do you think? Is Sherman's conclusion convincing? And you can say it is convincing or is not, and explain why. And again, the way you would do that is to go to paragraph 15, just highlight it, and write your annotations, and then click save. And then I would see a little box, and I'll be able to go there and check your responses. And be sure that you are also highlighting your textual evidence to support your reasoning. So rhetorical strategies, real quick. We're going to go through this rather quickly. So she includes two of those specific anecdotes that provide examples of armed service members experiencing survivor's guilt. What kind of appeal do those anecdotes create? Do you find these appeals to be effective? Why or why not? Again, just go to those paragraphs in which those anecdotes are, where they do occur, and just highlight them. Let's just pretend it's in paragraph 1. Highlight them, and then in your dialog box, annotation box, answer those questions. I want you to go read page 48, which is for remote learners. You're going to click on the authors button and read about the author, read about her experience, what it has to say about her. Right below the title, there's a button that says author, and see her expertise. Is she someone that you can rely on and trust, that she would have a good or moral ethic to write this article, someone that's believable, and what kind of appeal would that create for you? And do you find that appeal effective? Why or why not? Again, answer that in the annotation box. And the last one, I want you to reread paragraph 5 and paragraph 9. And what kind of appeal does the author create here? Do you find this appeal effective? Why or why not? So those 3 questions. So just for an exit ticket, just to think and discuss, what qualities help us survive? Think about it. We've read Through the Tunnel, we've done The Seventh Man, and now you've read the moral logic of survival. What do you think? What are qualities that help us survive? What have you learned about the concept of survival from reading this editorial? And what other connections can you make? I hope you have a good day, and if you have any questions, always email me, message me. I will have a Google Meets on Wednesday and 1 in the morning, 1 in the afternoon, so please attend if you have any questions and need any help. Thank you guys, and have a great day.